Do you think that homelessness is just an issue for a small, poor group in society? Think again. 13 years old, homeless, without support, abandoned on the street, trying to survive on their own. A young father, hands trembling, tightly pulls the tarp over the torn tent, trying to protect his pregnant wife from the biting cold of a Chicago winter. Or the veteran who once sacrificed for the homeland, now sleeping rough on the sidewalk, hungry, lost, waiting for a miracle that never comes. This is not a science fiction movie. This is the heartbreaking reality happening right in the heart of Chicago, the city that was once a symbol of opportunity, of the dream of a better life. The sparkling lights on Michigan Avenue cannot hide the truth that day by day, thousands of people are pushed onto the streets with no shelter, no hope for tomorrow. What really happened to the American dream? Is Chicago really the promised land, or just a ghost town, where invisible people gradually disappear in the indifference of society? The truth will shock you. In today's documentary, we will expose the reality of the homelessness crisis in Chicago and the things the media doesn't want you to know. Let's explore. Chicago, the third most populous city in the United States, famous for its bustling atmosphere and fast-paced lifestyle. When mentioning Chicago, everyone immediately thinks of O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. But if you expect spotless waiting areas, spacious corridors, and top-notch service, prepare to be shocked. Instead of busy entrepreneurs and eager tourists exploring America, this airport is now filled with images that leave everyone stunned. The homeless people lay sprawled on the floor amidst the flow of passers-by. Behind every homeless person is a story. A homeless man temporarily staying overnight at Gate 2 of O'Hare Airport said he needs surgery after discovering a lung problem. Difficulties piled on top of difficulties. Unable to raise the money for surgery, he developed pneumonia. He has now received disability benefits and hopes to undergo surgery soon. Chicago, the city of skyscrapers, of dazzling lights, but also the place where thousands of people like Robert have to sleep on the streets every night.
Yeah, well, it's been rough. I've been homeless for the last 2 years now.
It's not that he didn't want to find shelter, but because the shelters were so overcrowded that without a bed, he still had to sleep on the cold floor. So why not choose an alley behind Dunkin' Donuts, where he could wrap himself in a blanket and wait for dawn? Even when he has to sleep outdoors, Robert is not really alone, because the giant rats are always there. In the darkness of the city, they are his only companions. Despite life being full of overwhelming difficulties, Robert never stopped searching for an escape. He applied for jobs at the White Sox and Cubs, hoping for a life-changing opportunity. But the phone never rang, and the interview invitations never came. No one hires him, no one helps him, no job, no money, no home. But his dream is so simple.
A place to stay and not be hungry, and some friends. Well, and some teeth.
This is not just a personal story. It is a tragedy of the entire system. Is the city of Chicago falling into decline like a real-life ghost town? Please like the video and leave a comment below. You know, just one mistake, and a whole life collapses. That's right, you heard it correctly. He once had a job, a home, a girlfriend, a normal life like everyone else, but just one misstep, and Gary fell straight to the bottom of society, a place with no way back.
Okay, I've been homeless for approximately 6 months, and the reason why is because I had unpaid fines and court costs in DuPage County.
After getting out of prison, he had no money, no one to help him, and nowhere to go. He found a room to rent weekly for $140, thinking it would be the starting point to rebuild his life. But the girlfriend left, taking everything with her. Once again, every door slammed shut in front of me. With no other options, Gary turned to Pacific Gardens Mission, a temporary shelter. But even poverty has its price. Here, the regulation requires all furniture to be placed in the hot room to exterminate insects. And the unfortunate event occurred. The next morning, Gary's backpack had disappeared. That backpack was not just an item. It contained everything he had left: his phone and some other personal belongings. No home, no place to stay. The only place to sleep is on the subway. Having lost his shelter, he wandered on the Green Line train, sprawled on the cold, hard seats to find a short nap amidst the crowded carriages. But the tragedy didn't stop there. One night, two strange men approached him and took his identification, a small amount of money, and the Social Security card, the only thing left, was also gone. Notably, lacking identification can make escaping homelessness nearly impossible. That means being barred from federal, state, and county buildings, where social service agencies that assist the homeless are often located. Not only that, but finding a job, securing housing, opening a bank account, receiving food stamps, and disability benefits become much more difficult. However, he always maintains his faith and optimism that one day he will escape the streets and have a warm home. Where have the government and social organizations been in this heartbreaking story? Unbelievable in a wealthy country like the United States. A person only hopes for a roof over their head, a chance to start anew. Something that seems so obvious, yet is so far out of reach for people like Gary. Can you imagine? Every morning, thousands of American children still carry backpacks to school. But when the school bell rings, they have nowhere to go back to. The bed is simply a dirty mattress on the floor of a cramped boarding house. A quick cup of instant noodles on the street corner also becomes dinner. What about the bathroom? Maybe the sink at the gas station if you're lucky that day. Dion Pousey, 12 years old, has just lost his home. The boy's mother became homeless, forcing Dion to move in with his grandmother to continue his education. But who would have thought that to sit in the classroom, he had to go through dozens of paperwork, things that a homeless child cannot have. The undeniable truth is that the number of homeless students in Chicago is continuously increasing. Not just a few hundred, but thousands of children are experiencing a precarious life in cheap lodgings, overcrowded shelters, or even sleeping in the back seat of an old car. Although schools have policies to support homeless students with shower and laundry facilities, this issue has not been thoroughly resolved. The question arises: the beautiful numbers about America's development flood the news, but ask the children sleeping on the cold sidewalks. Do they see America as truly better? Forget about the misfortunes that Chicago students have to endure. The following story will surely move anyone who watches it. At an age when many children are still engrossed in playing games, a 7-year-old boy has changed the lives of hundreds of homeless people.
And I was just thinking of just use it for the homeless.
Jonathan Slack, a boy only 7 years old, but his heart is bigger than a city. On a trip to Chicago, Jonathan was stunned to see a homeless woman standing by the road, holding a sign asking for help. That scene haunted him so much that night, when his mother read him a story, he burst into tears. "Mom, that woman doesn't have a home. Can we go back to Chicago to give her the $6 I have in my pocket?" Jonathan asked his mother. How motivating those words are. How can a child utter such profoundly humanistic words? Jonathan's family knew that $6 couldn't change a homeless person's life, but the boy didn't give up. He decided to do something bigger. At first, the boy planned to paint smiling faces on pebbles to sell and raise money to help the homeless. But then, an even greater plan was born. Jonathan wrote a letter calling on the entire community to come together to help the homeless. And then, the miracle happened. In just 10 days, the 7-year-old boy's campaign collected more than 4 truckloads of food, clothes, and toys. All for those sleeping outside in the freezing cold in Chicago. People say this world needs powerful individuals to change everything. But sometimes, a 7-year-old boy with a kind heart can do more than an entire government. If a 7-year-old boy can change the lives of hundreds of people, why can't we, the adults, do something today? What do you think about this? Please leave a comment below to let us know. You know, even though there are some incredibly moving stories of helping the homeless, out there are still many lives that have to sleep in tents in the freezing Chicago weather, even down to -15 degrees Celsius.
It's rough. It's really rough. It's getting cold.
The cold wind, the rain pattering on the thin tent roof, a small tear in the nylon fabric, seemingly insignificant, but for Laval, it could mean the difference between survival or freezing in the Chicago winter. Laval and Roxanne and his wife do not have a home. They do not expect a fully furnished apartment, a comfortable sofa, or a sturdy front door. They only wish for something simpler, a tent that can withstand the cold wind. Now, other tents have insulation, weather resistance. That's what we really need to survive the winter. Laval said, his eyes fixed on the sturdier tents, but too expensive for his budget. Difficulties piled upon difficulties. His wife is pregnant. Each gust of wind whistling through the gaps in the tent is a reminder that their baby will be born in the cold, in the park, under a fragile tent. Just wait a few more months. Maybe we will have housing. That is the promise from the city's housing support system. But what if the support program is not approved? Laval still regularly meets with his social worker at Jesse Brown Hospital, where the Heartland Alliance program supports homeless veterans. But the procedures, paperwork, and long waiting lists are turning their hope into an endless ordeal. It's truly sad. Humboldt Park, once a destination for picnics, is now a place where hundreds of people huddle in makeshift tents. Laval, Roxanne, and their companions lean on each other, no longer thinking of having a place called home. They just need a shelter to avoid freezing when night falls. Chicago, the city of skyscrapers sparkling with lights, but right under the park canopies, there are people who only wish for a better tent. Is this the American dream that millions of people once hoped for? Not stopping there, imagine that as soon as you get fired, you will become homeless overnight. It sounds heartbreaking, but this is a harsh reality in the city of Chicago. I just got fired. Pucci used to work as a flyer distributor for a jewelry store on Michigan Avenue. A simple job, but at least it helped him make a living. But when the company downsized, 11 people lost their jobs. 11 people lost their chance to hold on to this city. And then, like thousands of others, he was pushed out onto the street. In a city where job competition reaches its peak, even middle-class people with what was once considered a stable income cannot guarantee a prosperous life and a stable home to live in.
Sometimes you don't eat, sometimes you don't get blessed. Sometimes you get to the shelters late, you gotta sleep outside.
Thanks to God, I now have a temporary lodging. But who knows what tomorrow will bring? No job, no income. Everything is so fragile that just a gust of wind could sweep it all away. An apartment, a good job are things that many people take for granted, but for him, they are a distant dream. Chicago, where you can fall from a normal job to the bottom of society overnight. No one is really safe. Are you sure you'll still have a home to go back to tomorrow? Something that no one in this city can guarantee for you. Do you think that those who have served in the U.S. military will have a stable, safe life after leaving the service? The bitter truth is worse than you think. Tens of thousands of veterans who once defended the country, but upon returning, they cannot protect themselves from the harsh reality of homelessness. The subsidies are insufficient for living, medical expenses have been cut, and rent has skyrocketed. All of this has pushed these heroes onto the streets. Many people return suffering both physical and mental losses. But instead of receiving support, they are turned away by society. No job, no home, no one to help. They are left to wander the sidewalks, holding a sign hoping to receive a few spare coins. How can one accept the reality that those who once defended America now do not even have a roof over their heads? When the government neglects them, who will stand up to help them? A country can spend billions of dollars on defense, but its veterans sleep on the sidewalks. If you agree, please share this story so that more people become aware of the forgotten truth. So, what is the reason that the number of homeless people in this city has increased to such an alarming level? One of the main reasons is probably that everything is expensive. Do you think Chicago is a cheap paradise compared to New York and Los Angeles? Think again. Although it seems more affordable than the two most expensive cities in the United States, with the average salary of many workers, a one-bedroom apartment costing $1,800 a month is no different from a luxury dream. Regarding food, not hungry but not full either. A simple meal at a cheap restaurant costs $12 to $20, and if you want to live it up a bit, just prepare $50 for a dinner. Even when cooking at home, a $2.50 loaf of bread or a $3 gallon of milk may seem cheap, but when everything adds up, the grocery bill can still leave you dizzy. In Chicago, transportation is cheap, but would you dare get stuck on the subway for life? A single train fare is only $2.50, and a monthly Ventra card is $105. Sounds reasonable. But when rent prices are too high, many people are forced to live far from the center and spend hours each day crammed on overcrowded trains. And if you have a car, gasoline at $3.50 per gallon isn't the issue. Parking fees are what really make you feel the pinch. And if you want entertainment, that's unrealistic. Make sure you have money left after paying all the bills. Movie tickets $11, museum $20. It doesn't seem too expensive, but in reality, many Chicagoans can't afford to enjoy the city they live in. Chicago is not New York or Los Angeles, but the cost of living is still enough to squeeze every penny out of your pocket. It's heartbreaking that in the wealthy city of Chicago, where it seems everyone can live happily, abundantly, and fully, there are still many people out there who are homeless. Can you imagine? 15 years old, no home, no family, no one to rely on. That is Kevin's story. At the age when this boy should be going to school and living under a warm roof, Kevin was kicked out by his mother just because of a youthful mistake. From then on, he began his journey of survival on the streets. Kevin had no choice but to wander the subway line. Each night with the boy was a nightmare. There, no sleep is safe. A moment of negligence can cost you everything, even your meager belongings. Finding a place to go to the bathroom is also a luxury. It sounds crazy, but that's the reality for homeless people. There are no public restrooms, and if you enter a store, you get kicked out for not having money to buy anything. The most basic needs of humans have also become a luxury. Even without a home, Kevin still strives to complete the culinary arts program. He once cooked for the mayor, had a chance to change his life. But every day for Kevin is still an unending challenge for survival. Another story. A homeless boy since he was 13, now 22, still wandering the streets. Truly, I can't hold back my tears. What do you think 13 years old is? Is it the mornings going to school, the afternoons playing soccer, the evenings sitting at home playing video games? Wrong. For Rule, at 13 years old, it was already nights spent shivering on park benches, scavenged meals, and days wandering aimlessly without knowing where the future would lead. A whole childhood without a home, exchanged for a lonely youth. Since being pushed out onto the streets, Rule has not stopped moving. From one state to another, from a dark corner of a bus station to an abandoned house, from nights curled up on a train to a bench in an empty cafe. A homeless child, growing up with the street society, studying, a 4.0 GPA, but I don't know where I'll sleep tonight. Imagine this. You have to take a midterm exam when you haven't eaten anything last night. There are no restrooms to wash your face this morning, and right now you don't even know where you'll be staying tonight. How can a child focus on studying when the people around you are being pushed into mistakes, caught up in filthy things just to survive? Rule shared. This is a failure of society. And that's right. There are millions of vacant houses, yet hundreds of thousands of people still have to wander the streets. Resources are sufficient, but they never reach those who need them the most. He is used to life without a home, but that doesn't mean it's okay. Rule said, people take for granted what they have, while we just hope for a full meal, a night of sleep without being woken up by the screams of strangers. These are not the only cases. Out there, countless homeless teenagers are struggling every day to survive. A small mistake, a family crisis, or simply being born into the wrong circumstances is enough to push them into an inescapable abyss. But the bigger question is, Chicago, the city of bright lights, with its towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and luxurious shopping centers, why are we allowing children to grow up without a home? In conclusion, the crowded streets, the dazzling lights of Chicago cannot hide a chilling truth. The number of homeless people is exploding at an alarming rate. From makeshift camps in the parks, to the shadows of people dozing on the subway, to the homeless teenagers wandering aimlessly, these all create a dark picture in the heart of a city once considered a symbol of prosperity. Is Chicago on the verge of collapse, or do we still have a chance to salvage it? Will this be a city of opportunity, or will it become a ghost town, where thousands quietly disappear into the darkness of oblivion? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated on our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.